Hello everyone, I'm Dead Knight and this is In It to Win It. Today we are going to talk about my legend run for season 88. Happened a little slower than I'm used to, but we definitely got there in dramatic fashion. So what did we get there with? It was once again Face Hunter. So Face Hunter is what got me there last season and has been a favorite of mine going through several years because of the style of play here. So I won't get into too much of the generalities like I usually do in these videos because we already did this last season for Face Hunter, but I would like to get into some individual design choices and maybe get into some of the mulligans and just really what the experience is like for me this round. So I wanted to work with some other decks and I did a little bit of experimentation and I tried some other builds, and every time I was just stuck at rank 1 or ended up backsliding back down to even as low as rank 5 until finally I picked up Face Hunter, made a tweak or two for the current meta, and just rocketed back up to Legend. In my opinion, this is the most versatile deck in this current meta. It's the best, the easiest way to play, and you have a chance to win every match. There's really no unwinnable matchups, which is what I like to play with when I'm playing a deck. I also like to focus on decks that are fast with a good win rate. So if you compare this deck to something like Control Priest, where games are going to take between 10 and 15 minutes to play, sometimes even upwards of 20, and this deck where you're going to be looking at games that are 5 minutes and absolute max at 10, even if the Priest deck has a slightly better win rate, this deck is going to get you where you need to be faster because those games are so much faster. So, you know, a 75% win rate versus 70% win rate, and then but the games are half the time, then you end up getting there quicker. So I like Hunter. Anyway, so how did this build change from the last one? So in the last video, I was making a big deal about how great Wriggling Horror was in this meta, especially against some of the tools that control decks have in the early game. So Wriggling Horror was there, and Trueaim Crescent was the other card that I was making a big deal about, especially synergizing with Trampling Rhino and also that early game control moment where you can really take advantage of your tempo. So I leaned into both those cards. I added the second Trueaim Crescent, and I also added Zixor Apex Predator. So adding Zixor is really interesting because when you play Warsong Wrangler and start discovering beasts, now instead of just seeing the 2 beasts, which telegraph exactly what's in your deck and the style of deck you're playing, now it pulls up 3. So their mind game here is that you could be playing Beast Hunter, you could be playing Serpent Bloom, there's all different kinds of things you might be playing, and your opponent doesn't know which card you've taken. It also means that if you happen to get unlucky and draw both of your Trampling Rhinos before you get a Wrangler, that you have something else decent to draw, and it also gives you one more credible push to the end game late if things don't go your way. So you can always draw that Zixor and just sweep your opponent's board and put a bunch of strong bodies on the board too. So Zixor I thought was a very versatile card. And what did we cut to make room for this? The thing we cut was Wound Prey. So Wound Prey synergizes fabulously with Kolkar Packrunner. So when you Kolkar Packrunner plus a Wound Prey gets you a bunch of rush minions and that 1 damage. But other than the synergy with Kolkar Packrunner, Wound Prey kind of sucks. You know, usually you're looking at a 1-for-1 situation. Sometimes it's a 2-for-1, but it's only rarely in the very, very early game. So while it does have its use, and I wouldn't frown on anyone for playing Wound Prey, it's a fine card. For me, it's not my style. It feels too much like a combo with Kolkar Packrunner, and by itself, you draw that guy late in the game, or at any point other than with a Kolkar Packrunner or on turn 1, you wish you had something else. So I cut that out for Trueaim Crescent, which if you top deck that, it's still dealing 1 damage in the end game, just like Wound Prey, but also gives you that more versatility at the beginning of the game and those Trampling Rhino synergies. So that was a big difference, and I really like both those changes. Other than that, this deck is running mostly the same. I just wanted to share a couple other things that I learned while playing this. Firstly, uh, I would recommend keeping one Warsong Wrangler in the mulligan in most circumstances. So even though it's one of your more expensive cards in the deck, drawing that guy and getting those buffed Trampling Rhinos is so important to close out games. Also, it gives you a chance to take control of the game with buffed Wolpertingers at the beginning. If you have two Wolpertingers on the board and you get that Wrangler out, you can really pump out some serious damage early game. I had one game that ended on turn 3 against a Control Warrior, where turn 1 the Wolpertingers hit the board. Turn 2 we buffed them with the Wriggling Horrors, making them 2/2s, and he was sitting there with the Rancor, ready to clear my board and gain all that armor back. And then I coined out a Wrangler, turned those Wolpertingers into 4/3s, and he just scooped. So sometimes you can steal some games with early Wolpertingers and the Wrangler, but mostly you just really want that buffed Rhino as fast as possible. So keep the Wrangler on the mulligan. The other card you want to keep on a mulligan, although not necessarily with the Wrangler, is Rinling's Rifle. So Blizzard recently released a sneak peek at some of the internal stats they collect, and both Wrangler and Rinling's Rifle were the top 2 performing cards in the game right now, and they're both with Hunter only. I mean, that is huge. So when you look at that, in fact, the top 4 cards are all Hunter, because the other ones are Demon Companion, which if you've played against this, you can understand why, and Adorable Infestation, which doesn't work for every deck, but really good in this deck. Anyway, Rinling's Rifle, probably the best card in Hunter, arguably probably the top 5 that Hunter has ever seen, and it's the highest performing card in the game right now, and if you get it in the mulligan, you should keep it. It's devastating versus the mirror match. It's just crippling versus other decks that are putting minions on the board. You can either close out games with Exploding Trap, you can open the cages, get that Always Huffer. Also, the Snake Trap I've found has been really useful too. But anyway, Rinling's Rifle is dominant. Definitely keep this guy if you have it in the mulligan. And it's probably the only downside of Trueaim Crescent is that it sometimes gets in the way. But don't be afraid to destroy your Trueaim Crescent to play a Rinling's Rifle on curve. So that's really the tips I can share with this deck that I learned this season. Really strong against just about every deck. You always have a chance to win, which is what you're looking for when playing a deck to Legend. So we'll talk about some of the other experiences I had during this season in some future videos. But tell me what you think of Hunter. Has it been as good for you as it has for me across time, really? Leave some respectful comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next time.